Good morning. Call the meeting to order, and we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Item number 3 on the agenda is an invitation for a citizen to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed. Is there anyone in the audience would like to schedule time that's not on the agenda? I don't see anybody that would like to, so we'll move on to item 4, which is the approval of the agenda. Is there any motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any comments, any additions to the agenda? Any other comments? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries as approved. Item 5 is consent agenda items. We have approval of the minutes, approval of travel requests, approval of personnel action notices, and approval of the human services report. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Any comments on any of the reports? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Pierce.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 6 is routine business. Item A is approval of the claims. Is there a motion to approve?
So second.
We did have one just change. It doesn't change the end amount. There was just, I handed out this morning, there was a change from one claim was accidentally coded to planning and zoning, and now it is, should have been in the IT, out of the IT department. 13366. So it doesn't change the bottom line. It just moved that one claim from one department to another.
Any other comments or questions? No other comments? We'll call the roll.
Krogman.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Bartley.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item B on the agenda, department head reports. We're going to start with Brian, the Highway Department.
Morning.
Good morning.
I had a busy last week here. I was out at the local roads conference in Rapid City last week, but we managed to get quite a bit done. I'll start with the structure there near Bruce. That work is completed. We got a little bit of cleanup left to do. We're working on that today, and then that needs to be seeded, and that'll be done. Road was opened back up on October 16th. Our chip seal that we're working on, we need to finish our striping. We're waiting for the contractor to show up with our 80-20 split with the state on that. Yesterday we got some good news. Last week they came in and installed the guardrail and finished the erosion control measures, and the signage was removed on the Deer Creek Station Bridge south of the power plant. That was opened up yesterday. And I also went and visited the bridges south on County Road 77, and as the water levels are continued to be above flood stage, there is no work being done. But there again, like I mentioned, talking with the contractor, they're going to be working through the winter on them. So, and yesterday brought up another issue that we're going to be facing quite a bit, talking with the sheriff and Bob. We're looking at a lot of mud on the road from harvest. Yesterday there was an incident where it's kind of a blind spot over a hill, and there was a muddy area, and it was really slick yesterday with a little bit of rain we did have, and Elkton school bus had a near miss. No injuries, but we did get out there to sign it right away, and talking with the landowners, they were out there removing the mud to try to get it off the road. But with that little bit of rain we got, it made it really slick. And from here on out, I guess I'm just asking the landowners or the producers to let us know so we can go out and look at it. They're been really good about removing the debris from the road, but with that little bit of residual there and that little bit of moisture we had, it was kind of the perfect conditions to make it really slick. So as we progress through harvest here, we're asking motorists to keep that in mind. We know the producers need to be out in the field, but we'll do what we can to try to sign it to forewarn them.
Okay.
So I guess that's all I got in a nutshell.
All right. Any other questions for Brian? Seeing none. Thank you for your report. Marty, have the sheriff's report.
Morning.
Morning.
Just quick with the jail stats from, I had this done yesterday, and yesterday we had 33 inmates. This morning we have 38. So you never know when it'll rise quickly. There's 38 in jail on 24/7. I have 157 still on 24/7. I have 44 that come in twice a day, so that's 88 per day for the blow and the PBT for alcohol. Scram bracelets, I have 27 individuals on Scram to download once a week. I have 71 in the 24/7 program to do UA tests. That doesn't include 14 on drug tests that are 14 individuals that are on the drug program, and HOPE program. Drug court is 14 and HOPE is 4 that come in for UAs. I have 10 on GPS, so we're tracking 10 individuals on GPS. So a lot of these individuals, again, I always say this, is that if we didn't have 24/7 in the GPS, we would be busting at the seams at our jail.
Marty,
Yes.
quick question. GPS, how many units do you have total of those available?
How many do I have?
Yeah. 'Cause remember,
I think we have 20.
you have 20 of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The company I've got is really good. We switched companies. Actually, there's another company trying to get our business through the Sheriff's Association. There's no cost for shelf. In other words, the first company we went with, if you didn't use them, you had to still pay a shelf cost.
Mhm.
But with this company, we don't. So, and 10 is is a lot for right now.
Well,
So
that's
it's getting judges and individual, mainly the judges to go ahead and put somebody on GPS.
Well, that was the reason for my question, is I saw 10 double digits, and I didn't know if you had 10 or 12. And we were
Yeah,
getting
no, we
to
have
the end.
20. So I got them if they'll put them on. So it's
Is-
all about the sentencing and the judge and.
And judges are obviously starting to use it a little bit more.
A little more,
Is it
yep.
a good alternative? Obviously, it's
Absolutely.
than having them
Yep,
incarcerated, I'm
absolutely.
guessing.
Yep. And if we have an individual that, is not a risk to society and doesn't need to be in jail and they have medical conditions and those type of things, we try to ask the judge to, so occasionally we'll ask the judge, hey, is it okay to put this person on GPS? Or even Dan, state's attorney, may suggest it too.
Yeah, what's the cost per day for GPS?
Well, our cost is $5.
Okay,
We charge the individual 10.
okay.
So, but again, if the person can't pay for it, or if the it's cheaper to put the county to pick up the $5. So, I don't have an issue with that. If you have someone that you want to put on that, like I say, we charge the individual 10. That way, he's got the freedom to go wherever he wants to. We can track him to the bathroom at Walmart. I mean, it's good. So, he gives us the person gives us where he's going to be during the day. And then I have someone that checks that every day to make sure that that's where he's going and so forth. So. Okay. Also down with committals, we have 5 this month. We had 4 since Thursday. We had 4 committals since Thursday, so that kept Bart Sweeby, the jail administrator. He basically is the only one that he's got 2 staff people that can assist with him, but mainly he's the main person that handles the committals. So he had a busy weekend. We had one 13-year-old, I believe she was 13. She might have been younger. Went to Yankton. So we're seeing a few more juveniles going into crisis that needs to be removed from the home and put someplace. So that's kind of disturbing that we still keep busy with the mental health calls and so forth. So just quickly, this jail schedule that I gave everybody, this is something that we went over with the author of the editorial in the paper, and I apologize that Matt, the register, and Mike has already went through this, but this kind of gives you an idea of what we do, and these are talking points for you as commissioners. When someone from the public comes up to you and says, hey, what are you doing to help the inmates while they're in jail? You're just housing them and not doing anything. Well, you got some talking points here. And just for instance, on Sunday there, on the 13th, it talks about church services. And a lot of times we have 2 or 3 different types of church services that day. We'll have one for female, one for misdemeanors, and one for felons. And then at night we have male visitation. So they go to about 9:30 on Sundays. Mondays we have magistrate court in the morning, and then there's criminal court in the afternoon. We have female Bible study, and then we have male Bible study. And then on Tuesday we have juvenile court, and then criminal court with Judge Stoltenberg. And at night we have female visitation. Wednesday is fingerprinting all day, and we bring in, I charge $10 for fingerprints, and normally we bring in anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 in fingerprints a year. And so you're talking 800 people or 1,000 people come in just to do fingerprints. I've always said that the jail was the best kept secret until the expansion. And then they go, oh my gosh, you're going to if you have a bigger building, you're going to have all this traffic and all these people. We already have that. A bigger building is just going to help us do it more efficiently, and nobody's going to notice. And that's the ones I charge. I don't charge for military or adoption individuals or people that are counselors that are getting jobs with mental health. We don't charge for them. So, and then on Wednesdays we have peace education class, and Candy Kisley is going to come in and just briefly, for about 15 minutes, explain what peace education is. And then that night we have male visitation. Then on Thursday, again, we have fingerprints all day. And then we have East Central Behavioral Health comes in and meets with inmates that want to talk about any issues they with mental health, chemical dependency, that type. And then at night we have female and male AA meetings. And then Friday we have fingerprints. Then peace education comes back in and works with the inmates. And then Saturday is probably our best day for groups and so forth coming in. And then at night we have female visitation. And the purpose of all this is worked out of one room. All this stuff is out of one room, one programming room. In the expansion, I'll have 5 programming rooms. So we can increase to, a lot of the inmates on and I know that this is one thing you're concerned about is pre-trial. I have inmates in there in pre-trial that have been there for 100 days, 114 days. Some of them don't have high school education, and I can bring GED if they want GED. Now I can't do that because they need to be taken out of their cell and put in a classroom setting of some sort, and so we'll have programming space for that. And there's other programs that we can do to help our inmates if I have the space. But again, all this is done out of one room, except fingerprinting. We do have a separate room for fingerprinting, but that's also client, counselor, medical. If I have a juvenile that's waiting to go to court, that room. And so if I have somebody in there, I can't fingerprint anybody. So that takes up a lot of time with just fingerprinting. So anyway, any questions? Again, with the mud yesterday, the sheriff's office and the highway department had a lot of complaints on the road conditions. I think it's a pretest before we'll just get over this event with mud, and then we'll go into the snow event. So maybe we'll have, so maybe this is a test to slow down. And it's all about driving too. Individuals are not looking for mud to be slippery around the corner. So, but a lot of it is over driving the road conditions, but it's sneaking up on them. We have a lot of farmers though that are really good about trying to clean up also. That north of town, right on the border between Dual County and Brookings, there's a big farmer up there that makes a mess on the roads, but he does have an employee out there with a scraper, and he scrapes it off, but so there's a lot of them that are trying to work, but in between time, getting it scraped off and driving. My school resource officer is going to work with the different schools, letting the bus drivers know and educate the kids that are driving to school, that they need to watch for these slippery spots with dirt. So we did a lot of media stuff yesterday. Linda at the highway and Brian did some media stuff, and my office did too. And so I think we got the word out. So if we just get everybody to listen. So
Yeah, you did get it out even on the internet. I know that I got a couple of messages. So some staff in the office got messages on their computers from your highlights and Brian's and the radio station. So yeah, the word got out.
Yep. So any questions other than that? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Kristen. The BCOAC report.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Morning.
All right, so you're going to have a little bit longer because we got a lot of things going on right now at the facility. As you guys know, we're just waiting for this rain event to stop. All the excavation equipment is actually at the facility to do the parking lot. I don't think I've ever been so happy as to see an excavator anywhere before, but Bose does think that they're going to go ahead and be able to start this week. But we may have that north parking lot closed, so the south doors will be what we open up as soon as the rest of the interior is done. So speaking of the interior, the lead mining started yesterday. So we are mining out the lead and then replacing that rubber to put everything back to, let's just call it factory specs in that gun range. So at the same time, we ended up having to take off the gun range door. And in the process, it was discovered that that door is not fire and up to fire code. Pete Bolzer was actually out for another reason, which I'll talk about in a minute. And so determining that when the door will not be able to go back on due to some stripping out, we just are going to go ahead and replace that door with soundproofing. And so that'll make that area a lot more convenient for guests, for shooters, and your small child won't jump in that viewing area when a 223 goes off. So things will be a lot more convenient. With that soundproofing, Midwest Glass will also be coming out and look at double painting the windows, which is only a single pane. Yes, bulletproof, but bulletproof doesn't make it soundproof. And that's been one of the big concerns, with 4-H shooting sports, as well as our patrons about that viewing room being extremely loud with the percussions there. So we are going to finish up all that this week while we're closed, even if the parking lot isn't done. So that soundproofing is done. Thank you to Brian for bringing out some road closed signs. So because the parking lot is not torn up, it's just a mud bog. People were coming out and mud bogging through the parking lot, I guess one last joyride. So Brian brought out some road closed signs so people hopefully will stay out of it and not tear it up even more. So the reason Pete came out is on Saturday. I don't know if you guys have heard. Saturday, I was actually out with a client in the field behind us doing pictures for a family. And there was a bus of, it just had, I think, Harlow's on the side of it. But there was a bus of kids out there. And my clients and I witnessed 3 kids, yelling profanities. It won't go out, as they run down the hill. And then they headed to our south doors. Well, what they had done was start a fire up on the top of the city area of the nature park. And so we did capture all of them. Not only I caught them with my lens running down the hill, but our security cameras caught them as well. So working with the fire department, working with the sheriff's department and the police department, they were pulled off of their bus. They were detained. All their information was caught. And then Pete determined it was arson, and they will move forward with what they need to do. So our security cameras are a fantastic thing, obviously, because we were able to pull facial recognition. But while Pete came in and he and I walked those trails that we were at, we did talk about some of the fire proofing of the building too, since he was right there. Okay, so back to a couple things. I hope everybody knows it's game day ESPN coming in. We actually this was our already stated game for BCOAC to be the sponsor of the Dakota Marker game. So our ads will be running for this game as us being a sponsor of the game. So our money is well spent, let's put it like that. Even if it was for this one game for what we pay, this is a pretty good thing for us. So just mentioning that. We're already planning for Tourism Week. So we've got February and January, and we have the high school football tournament as well that's coming up. And so working with our tourism partners, our information is going out. And then February, we'll have Frost Fest, and we're partnering with the Children's Museum on a couple of things there as well. I'm trying to figure out where I am. The leagues will start in January for gun and archery. Beacon Hill has brought over their 22 league. So Tuesdays now are getting pretty full. So that date, everybody kind of said, oh, this is not going to take out, hey, well, we're going to cancel it already. Well, now our range is full on 22 nights. So great partnership with them. We are back to having our normal sales revenue. And then Pumpkin Chuck-In is going to be on November 9th. And we've already had some great coverage. And KDLT has come down and done a story, which they told us last year that it just wasn't their thing. So obviously it's their thing now. So it's nice to see that happen. One thing that I am going to ask, and we did not get our coordinating everything for this week. I did not get my forms turned in time to ask for 2 part-time staff to help alleviate some of the issues we're having with weekend coverage and event coverage. And so my ask is, may I start advertising and then get the forms in for approval at our next commission meeting to be able to follow proper protocol. Does that sound efficient to you guys? Or Stacy, what steps do I need to take?
Without objection. Did we just do 2 of them part-time there?
We did one, and it was a conversion for my intern to.
Okay. All right. I just want to keep the numbers straight. So no, the part-time you need them. So yeah, without objection. There you go.
Okay. Any questions on the rest of this?
Nope.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Mike?
Good morning. I hadn't been up here for a while, so I figured I'd come up and just tell you a little bit what's going on in the office. Currently, I still do go up the third Wednesday of each month to campus and meet with the students up there and do any kind of VA work that they might need up there. We've been keeping pretty busy with the going to schools and stuff. Eileen and I both passed our state test for the Veterans Affairs Office, and Eileen is about 3/4 of the way through her federal testing to get accredited to go onto the VA computer system. And other than that, the welfare side seems like we just keep having people show up. So it's going as it's going, and hopefully things get better, but there's just some people.
Yeah. Any questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike. I'm going to switch to Bob Hill. County Development Report.
Good morning.
Morning.
I passed out, I went ahead and printed off my staff report and gave it to the commission. We'll just hit the highlights of it. We did talk to an ROTC class on October the 8th, the same day as our last county commission meeting. That went well. It's one of the key things brought up during that is, when you talk military helping the civilian side of the house, a lot of your civilians know about equipment that was in the military 20 years ago, and believe it or not, none of that equipment still exists. It's in museums. So I did find that quite interesting. I was talking about vehicles, and these poor ROTC students just sit there with their mouth open. What are you even talking about? So it's interesting, some of the equipment. The good thing is at the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners meeting earlier this year, they had a briefing on civilian and military working together, and we got a good book and I actually passed that book out during that ROTC meeting to show that the civilian side of the house understands that if we request the National Guard to come out, that it's not free. There's always going to be a money a monetary need there. Next up, we had a First Responders Day at United Living Center. I was out of town down in Sioux Falls. Richard went over there, and United Living Center, you know, we support them with emergency management funding on to help get a generator in case of a power outage, and it was comforting and real good where they treated the first responders to a good day. They just had them over there for lunch, and a lot of the residents of United Living Center was telling stories. I know a former county commissioner and her husband Barb and Roger Telkamp was there, and they talked about how they supported the county on the first responder side, and so that went well. Had a county health fair, we had a communications drill, we had a PPC pod meeting on October 11th. Monday was a federal holiday. I came in and got our command trailer pulled out and brought to this parking lot, getting ready for the big Tuesday exercise. The Tuesday exercise kicked off at 8 a.m. It went well. We had, not only did we give 1,000 flu shots to South Dakota State University students, but we actually pulled our emergency operations center together outside the parking lot, and we had the commission department, finance, highway, human services, and weed departments, along with my county development department and the city of Brookings Street Department, all participated out there. And our EOC is getting together pretty good. We are that was our 2020 exercise, full-scale exercise. Now we're gonna back up and start doing some tabletop exercises for events that we haven't touched in a while. And we'll see what happens with those. The county's gonna do some exercises, and the city of Brookings wants to involve their staff in some exercises also. And we wanna look at some of the flooding stuff around some of the lakes. And you know, this last flood really caught us by surprise with all that water coming out of Moody County into us from the back way. So it was brought to my attention that would be a good exercise to have, a tabletop exercise. Get the first responders that would respond to the, such as Lake Campbell area, all together at a tabletop and see if they're all on the same sheet of music. Next up, we had a South Dakota Planners Association meeting in Brookings. It was a 2-day conference. We had about 57 people show up. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend either day. On the 16th, I had a public assistance visit, which meant FEMA brought in a team, and I went to, I want to say, 4 different townships, and we reviewed damage that we had, and then they documented. We had to get some photographs into FEMA. The public assistance side went well. Also on the 16th, they had the South Dakota Planners Association had sessions here at the Swiftel Center, and then they had a banquet that night. And then on the 17th, or Thursday, they had a legal meeting here, which, from what I understand, we forgot to invite our legal team to attend. Unfortunately, I do apologize for that one. But and then we had county workshops. The county development department was in charge of a workshop that went up to the wind energy systems facility up north, and then they stopped and visited a dairy on the way back. And on that day, I also had a FEMA team come in with FEMA, Small Business Administration, and an Office of Emergency Management, and we went to the cities of Aurora and Elkton on the 17th. And we observed 10 different residences. And then they actually came back out again on Saturday the 19th, and we observed 15 more residences and 1 business. And that data now is sitting at peer with the Office of Emergency Management for their determination. They're going to get all the information together, and then they're going to send it to the governor's office. And then when all the different counties are together, the governor will review it and then send it to FEMA to make a declaration one way or the other. Once we know one way or the other, whether we're getting public and individual assistance or not, we will send out press releases and hit the press on that. Right now, we don't know what's going on. All we've done so far is go out, show FEMA what our damages are, and now they're taking care of that. And since time is real short, let's see, tomorrow there's Thursday, there's a National Weather Service meeting down at Arrows Data Center where we're going to talk about fall, winter, I believe. FEMA has sent out next Tuesday, we got FEMA here, and they're going to close out our claim for the 2019 flood event. I've got information from the county highway shop, information from my protective measures such as sandbags and sand, and those claims will be submitted next Tuesday. And we've got a 30-day engineering model notification letter from FEMA saying that they are going to be looking at some areas to fine-tune our FEMA flood maps over the next year. Any questions?
Any
We also
questions?
have the one, just be it noted, item for county development on the agenda.
Yeah, I was just going to go through that. Be it noted that Chairperson Bartley is authorized to sign the fourth quarter 2019 state and local agreement report, and there's a document in your packet. With that, Bob,
Yes, sir.
I think we're finished.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our 9 o'clock scheduled presentation by Ed Zapita with McKinstry, talking about our facility condition assessment proposal. So please introduce yourself. The microphone's always on. Talk into it loudly so the other
Thank
two
you.
people in the room can hear you. Three people. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good
Ed.
morning.
Morning.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bartley. So my name is Ed Zapita, and I'm with McKinstry, and I'm also joined today by my colleague Isaac Phones. Isaac is our facility consulting program manager at McKinstry and would be the point person for all facility condition assessment opportunities in our organization. As all of you know, or I hope you know, we have been in a successful partnership with the City of Brookings and just recently completed the Larson Ice Center project. We're really excited about the opportunity to be ingrained in the city. We've had boots on the ground, McKinstry employees here since about February working on that project. And as a result of that partnership, we were asked by the city to continue with an additional service called a facility condition assessment. So we entered into that agreement with the city a couple of months ago. Isaac and the team have been within the city looking at their facilities. And through the discussions between Matt Bartley and Ms. Stephenson, we were asked to provide a proposal to Brookings County for a facility condition assessment. That proposal was delivered to Ms. Stephenson, and I believe she shared that with you. We're looking forward to the opportunity today to really not talk about the proposal, but really talk about the value and the benefits of a facility condition assessment. And one of the things that we take a lot of pride in is really understanding who our potential clients and or our clients are. And so in my research, it was really encouraging to see that in the county, under your strategic plan, specifically relating to your mission, you talk about strategic future planning to enhance the quality of life for all county citizens. The facility condition assessment is a great step in that direction, and more importantly, it specifically addresses goal number 1 around quality infrastructure and equipment, but more specifically, objective number 1 around short-term and long-term planning for facilities and other county assets. We believe that the facility condition assessment does help our clients with better planning. Most organizations today talk about capital planning, right? Replace a piece of equipment because it's 20 years old. Replace a door because it's a specific age. We believe that it needs to be much different than that. McKinstry believes in a process called capital investment. And capital investment is really around looking at the particular assets within the county and then prioritizing them based on a number of different criteria. So rather than steal the thunder, I'm going to turn this over to Isaac, and he'll actually walk you through the specific process of how we do it, why we do it, and the values and the benefits, but more importantly, share with you the interactive tool that we provide to our clients that engage with us in this process. Isaac?
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So as Ed mentioned, with McKinstry's experience working in the built environment, facility condition assessments are not new, but what we've seen over the last several years is that paper reports end up sitting on a shelf. It's not really a good budgeting tool because as soon as you take care of one of the projects or one of the capital asset replacements in your paper report, the whole rest of the budget is off, right? And more often than not, they wind up collecting dust. And so we've always had a detailed, in-depth process, which I'll describe for you briefly, but one of the things that I'm also going to show you is what we call our FCA Viz tool, or a data visualization tool, which helps, as Ed mentioned, with a data-driven prioritization process so that you can get out of reacting to things breaking, get out of the break-fix model with your facilities and your capital assets, and instead actually have a plan, which in the long run saves money, so that you're not bringing a contractor in overtime, Saturday night, paying triple overtime, whatever it is, right, because something broke. Instead of having your assets on a plan, much like it is optimal to take care of your own house in that way or your own car in that way, it's always cheaper to not wait for things to break. So my understanding is that everyone has this presentation on screens in front of you. Is that correct? Great. So I'm not going to read it to you, but the idea is a little bit of what I just touched on, is do you have a plan? How can you really prioritize if you don't know what you have? And once you do know what you have, do you have a good system in place for effectively prioritizing just what Ed referred to, a capital investment strategy for your buildings? And especially since that's so close to what this commission's responsibility is for. I'll jump to the next slide really quick just to describe our process. You can all read what's there, but what's important to us is collaborating with the people who are working in and being served by the buildings. So there's interviews, both formal and informal. There's a period of time where we're gathering information such as equipment schedules and drawings that are found in building blueprints and those kind of things. And that's given us a foundation for knowing what you have, what we should expect when we get on site with your facilities. And also just gives us a general idea what kind of contractors are you using, how do people feel about the buildings that they're working in or being served by. And then we get the on-site audit part, which as you expect is we come out to your buildings, but more importantly, we're actually capturing high-resolution digital photographs of all the assets that wind up being what you ask us to look at. So those are there for the record, and that also helps with the analysis piece. The analysis piece is, as Ed mentioned, we work together as part of the process with you to make sure that it's not just the age or the condition of the asset. That makes it kind of a flat measurement if you think about it, because then something that's old, regardless of how important it is to the county or the functions of a particular building, could be prioritized for replacement above something that has much more greater public impact. So a classic example is you've got a small electrical panel serving a light in an outbuilding, and that could wind up, if you don't have a comprehensive scoring and prioritization rubric, you could wind up planning to replace some sort of a broken old electrical panel before doing preventive maintenance and getting replacements in for a large piece of HVAC equipment, for example, that's serving something that has a lot of public foot traffic or a lot of county employees in it. So that's a piece of the analysis. And then finally, the report is what I'll get to next. And, clients are less and less asking for a paper report. We're happy to provide them, whether it's for record or for posterity or whatever it is. But what I'm going to show you now is this data visualization tool that I've mentioned. Everyone asks if it's proprietary, so I just want to get that on the record. It's not proprietary. We have a team of energy data analysts, and how can I make everybody see what's on my screen again? Drag. There it goes. So we have a team of energy data analysts who built this tool, which is going to want to be difficult for me now as I show it to you, but who built this tool that takes all of this information that's provided in the facility condition assessment. The software is called Tableau. McKinstry doesn't own Tableau. We pay a license to Tableau, so I'm not trying to sell you Tableau. It's a software that anyone can use. People use it for everything from tracking epidemiology to sports statistics, you name it. But our energy data analysis team use their expertise to build this data visualization tool for our facility condition assessments. So I will walk through. I talk about this a lot, and I'm really passionate about the value that it brings, so stop me if there's questions or if I'm going too quickly. But what I'll do first is I'll walk briefly through each of the tabs or the modules that are in this tool just to show you what's there. And then time permitting, I'll show you how you could use it to build a financial planning scenario for the county if this were your portfolio of buildings. Before I get into that, are there any questions about our process or our system or what the McKinstry FCA looks like? Okay, great. So as you can see, this first tab that we're on is what's called a heat map. As you witnessed, initially what it can show you is at each location, each system that we've analyzed, and it gives you an average score and equipment count. Just for the ease of being able to read it on the screen resolution, I changed it to be all systems across all buildings. So at the get-go, what you would see if this were your portfolio of buildings is that your top priority system of assets around the city or around the county is fire and life safety assets, and it gives you a net present value of the estimated replacement cost, how many systems we're looking at, that kind of thing. Another way to visualize some of this information is just through a map, where each of these circles represents one building. In this case, we're looking at a historical society. You could look at a city hall, just hovering over that dot, which is coordinated via latitude and longitude coordinates. It can also be used with GIS systems, but what it is, where it is, how many assets we looked at, we can make that say anything that you need as part of your data visualization tool. In the top right corner of the map, you'll notice that it gives you a roll-up, approximately 1,400 assets across 25 buildings with an average life remaining of 8 years, and an average score across all the assets of 20, with a 30-year net present value. So we're capable, you want 5, 10, 15, that's fine. This client wanted a 30-year long-term capital planning budget, and so that's what this just under $60 million figure represents. One more thing I'll show you about this is if you wanted to isolate just one building or a number of buildings, just by clicking on it, it filters out all of the other facilities, and then you'll notice that this roll-up at the top immediately adjusted to show you just what's at that location, how many assets, the average score, and what that net present value is on a 30-year term. So where it starts to get a little more fun is on the Assets tab, which I'll show you here. So each of these rectangles represents one asset in the city. And by hovering over it or clicking on it, it shows you all of the information that we've gathered and analyzed about that individual asset, what it is, where it is, if it has a tag, what its capacity is, whether that's in amps or cubic feet of air per minute or heating output, or you get the idea. It shows you all the different scoring variables that we use. And as I mentioned, it's not just asset condition or age, but this particular client wanted us to use what's called a constituent facing score, which is kind of a measure of, how on a daily basis, how much foot traffic is going to be impacted if this asset fails. The estimated replacement cost is normalized on a 1 through 5 scale. I should mention that we use golf scores where 1 is new or like new and 5 is unsatisfactory or beyond expected useful life based on our observation. So higher scores enable us to show intensity in our scoring. A facility condition index score is simply a ratio of year 1 deferred maintenance against building the entire building new, so that can start to drive some of the decisions that you make about facility use or eventual replacement prioritization for structures. The occupant impact is answering the question, how does this impact the employees of this facility if this asset were to fail? And then the revenue impact score is answering the question, what's the size of the emergency? Who's going to notice if this asset breaks or becomes non-operational, and what kind of resources are we going to be mobilizing to get it fixed? So then all of those are added up to the total score that you see there for any given asset, which is how we're able to take a wide variety of types of assets, whether it's an architectural system or a piece of mechanical equipment or an electrical panel, and they all are scored and then prioritized relative to one another such that the county can then make data-driven decisions about next year, the year after, the next 5 years, 10 years, et cetera. So across the top, you can see those are the scoring variables that I've just been discussing. And then on the right-hand side here, we have a little bit of a menu of options. So one way to use this is if you say, hey, I just want to look at all of the fire department related facilities, I simply check those blocks and click apply, and then it's going to filter out for me all of the other buildings that I don't want to look at. My map adjusts, my net present value adjusts, the assets that I'm looking at adjust, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, you can undo anything via a variety of methods. You can undo filters. There's a back button that is a little outside of the borders of your screen right now, or at least it's outside the borders of mine. And I'll keep moving on because we're going to come back to this as I show you a little practical application of it. But the Prioritize tab can feel a little overwhelming, but the easy way to describe this is as you're making decisions about a capital investment strategy and what's important to you, you might know based on your constituency that they're going to care very much about things that might not normally fall within the realm of concern for a typical building assessment. So one good example, and this is just pulling this out of thin air, but let's just say you happen to have a lot of people maybe you have a much larger than normal senior citizen population. You know they're going to use a lot of elevators around your county buildings, right? Well, you could come in here and then this conveyance tab, which generally is your vertical person transportation, we can somewhat arbitrarily add 5 points using that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points to every single piece of conveyance equipment around the county. And then that will, once again, as you're relatively prioritizing all of your asset management and investment strategies, it will add points to that as a way of emphasizing. Does that make sense? So you can do that with HVAC. You can do that by location. We've had some private clients who have really significant donors, and they want to make sure that those things that are of interest to them get prioritized in their capital planning. I'm not here to tell you how to do it, but that's what this is for. The net present value tab gives you a 30-year bar graph that shows you what each building has year over year as part of your capital investment strategy. So this is good just to look at what years you have really large values in, so that you can do a little bit of planning ahead of time and say, well, year 10's pretty tall. I want to take some of the year 10 projects and move them to year 9. I want to take some of those year 6 projects and move them to year 5, and it helps you have a little bit more of a sustainable financial outlook, and helps you have some less extreme peaks and valleys in your financial planning. Another thing that you can do here is just look at one given individual building simply by clicking on it, and then your 30-year bar graph adjusts to show you just that individual facility. We're working on a Microsoft machine, so you can hold down Control and click a number of buildings and look at those. Okay, the last thing before we run through a quick scenario of financial planning is that this prioritized asset list is not yet prioritized. We haven't done anything with it. We haven't told it to do anything. But this is simply a representation of all the data that we've gathered and analyzed in an Excel workbook as part of the facility condition assessment. And it's right now prioritized high aggregate score. When you hover over a piece of equipment, it also here tells you the notes that we've gathered about it. And then you just scroll down, and after we get to the end of the City Hall building assets in this case, it'll take us to, and then we'll start over where we've got the highest prioritized score for the next building, which in this case is the farmer's market, and on and on. So I just show you this so that when we run a financial planning scenario, you'll see how this changes and adjusts for your use.
Just a question on that score. So if you highlight the score on any of these particular areas, like we'll pick chiller, you're on it anyway, but it talks about what might be going wrong, or what's, one of them said rusted connection. So when we look at this, we could look what you saw at the same time. It's not a guess anymore. We need to go look at it again. That's what we saw, and this is what we need to replace and why.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
That's the intent of providing the notes, is give as much information in a rapidly accessible manner as possible. And not all assets are going to have notes with them because they're on an expected timeline, performing as expected, should be replaced when expected. So
Right.
when appropriate, we add notes. Yes, sir.
It seems to me the notes are pretty appropriate, because that helps me understand sometimes even more than data does exactly what the issue is with the equipment.
Yes, sir. Any other questions before we do a quick scenario?
Sorry.
Okay, great. So there's 2 primary ways that you can use this for creating a capital investment strategy. One of them is to say, well, we know we have X amount of dollars to spend in the next 3 years, but we don't really know what to spend it on or how to prioritize that spend. Another way to do it is to say, I don't want to assume how much money we need to spend. I want to know what our priorities are for the next 3 years, and then see what that budget looks like, and then we'll whittle away from there based on what's realistic. So for the sake of time, we'll do the first one. As I mentioned, we've got, and of course it wants to stick on $2.7 million for me over here because I selected this building. So the good news is it applies all of your filters across all the tabs when you do them. You just have to remember which ones you applied. Okay, so now we're back to our nice round, almost $60 million figure for 30 years of capital asset management. But the first thing that we can do is we take this life remaining slider up here. What this does is it helps us filter, and I drag it down to what did I say, 3 years? We'll do a 5-year plan. And the first thing you'll see is that all the assets that aren't going to be replaced in the next 5 years fall off of this map. Nothing here is going to be replaced in the next 5 years. Also, our number immediately went from $59 million, $600,000 down to $21.3. That seems a little high, and the reason it is because this tab here still has second and third replacements selected. So when you're creating a short-term budget, you don't want to account for the second and third time you're going to replace the water heater in a 30-year period. So that's what getting rid of the second and third replacements means. So I'll click first replacement only, give it a second to think about it. It's the same assets, but now we're down to $11.5 million in the next 5 years. You can say, that's fine, Isaac. We don't have $11.5 million to spend in the next 5 years. And that's when you start to continue to use these scoring variables based on the county's priorities, what's important to the county as you're prioritizing. So you could say, constituent facing, I only want to look at things that have a very high constituent facing score, things that are going to have a lot of public foot traffic, things that the people that we represent are going to care about. And now I'm down to 6.8 with essentially the slide of a couple buttons. And then when I come over here to my net present value tab, assuming I want to stop my prioritization there, now, as I mentioned, it's only showing us the next 5 years, and it's only showing us the buildings where those replacements are on a year-over-year basis. And then when I look at my prioritized asset list, it's been reduced down now to only those assets that meet the criteria for being replaced in the next 5 years. I like to call this the shopping list. It tells you what it is, where it is, shows you the scores that you gave it and what needs to be replaced, the year it needs to be replaced. And then if I was to right-click on this, and I can copy cross-tab, I can do a number of things. The bottom line is you can essentially paste it into an Excel file if you want to for generating your own reports or doing your own filtering or printing or those sorts of things. So there's so much more we could do with this. Like I said, I can talk too long about this, but just very quickly, you can see how we started with 1,400 assets and $60 million and pretty quickly got down to $6.8 million, 273 assets. And we know that those are already prioritized based on the needs, the wants, and the priorities of the county commission based on what you think your constituents need and want out of county buildings. And so it stops being an emotional, reactionary, squeaky wheel gets the grease thing and becomes a data-driven decision that you can use to plan short and long-term for your county facilities, which, as Ed mentioned, assists greatly with meeting your goals. Are there any questions?
Good will. Questions from the commissioners?
How long does it take to put this data together?
So this particular scenario, as I mentioned, was 25 buildings and 1,400 assets, and start to finish, that was about 4 months. With the county, we could anticipate it being probably closer to 3. There's some of that time investment that just can't be hacked off based on small scale. The analysis is the analysis is the analysis.
Do you use everybody internal to, look at HVAC, or do you hire consultants, bring consultants with you? How do you take a look at all these different lives of the roofs, the plumbing, the electrical? Do you guys know all that, or how
Sure,
does
yeah.
that work?
McKinstry has all those people on staff, fortunately, which is the good news. And if it's not somebody that we have here in a regional office, we've got a great bench of folks around the country. But I think one of the benefits of this tool is that it's a visual inspection, which enables an apples-to-apples comparison of your assets. So everything is scored regardless of whether or not, you don't have to have an electrical engineering degree to open up an electrical panel and look at it and say, whew, well, it should kind of look like this based on age, but because it's serving a pool equipment room, there's a lot of oxidation and it's in rough shape, and I think we need to move up the replacement year on this piece of equipment. And it's the same type of thing, whether it's HVAC or siding on a building, and we're recommending maintenance practices or catching up on deferred maintenance. So the answer is we have those people. If there's a particular asset or group of assets that we want some further consulting on internally, but generally speaking, it's not needed because it's a visual inspection.
When you look at your data, say 5 years down the road, and this becomes somewhat outdated at that point, I'm going to guess, how often do you update the information in this? And because the data is only as good as its timing. And so my concern is, how often are you coming back to look at this? Let's just say that we took one and we said 5 years out on the road, we're looking at this, and these are some questions on that panel. And last time you looked at it was 5 years ago. Do we contract with you to come back out and look at it and update this scenario, or do we use our own people to update the scenario? When we get down to selecting the parameters to fit the budget, where do we go to make sure that we're still on schedule and something didn't change? Is that a contract with you, or do we have to do that internally? In other words, if we can't use the data, what's value to it? So
Exactly. The good news is there's a number of options depending on kind of your appetite, how involved you want to be, how much you want to outsource it. We have clients who just want to send me an email with all of the projects that they implemented that year and ask me to refresh their Excel database, refresh their Viz tool, and send them a new version at an hourly rate, which is not significant when you're talking about that level of refresh. And then we have other clients who want us to come out every year and look at the next year's 20% of asset replacements that are planned, confirm that that's what needs to happen, confirm nothing else has changed, update the database and the Viz tool on site based on projects that have been done. So there's, unlike a lot of things, on one end of the spectrum, you could buy a license from Tableau and do it all in-house with a little bit of coaching from us, or you could put together a small budget every year to have us continue to keep it refreshed for you on an annual basis. To answer your direct question, that's the recommendation. It's kind of like a doctor's visit, you know, unless something crazy is happening, you should go in once a year, have a checkup, make sure things are running the way they should be according to plan.
Other questions?
When new buildings come online, does the entire O&M manual just go to you and that gets input as a part of that process then?
It just really depends on what kind of information you want included in the report. O&M manuals tend to be a level of detail that aren't helpful for capital planning prioritization. But again, you know, it's not my report, so if you want an O&M manual in there, we'll put it in there. But yeah, when new buildings come online or major renovations happen, that's what's great about this is it can be updated. It's a matter of, you know, if you replace a chiller, and I go into the Excel file and I just change out the approximate install date, refine the cost. That's one of the tool actually even gets better over time because our pricing is really accurate for these replacement costs. But if you say, hey, 50,000 was pretty accurate, but it cost us 48.7, then I'm going to put 48.7 in there. It'll be inflated according to the formulas that we have in there. So it actually refines itself over time based on the interactive relationship and keeping the data updated.
I assume that you've had this database out for a while?
Sorry?
You've had this database out for a while?
We started providing this to clients probably about 3.5 years ago, as I said, kind of out of a reaction to not wanting to give people a big notebook that they weren't really using. What's great about the fact that I'm not selling you software, right? What's great about that is that every single client gets a incrementally better version of what we're creating with this tool because you could say, hey, tweak this, change that, I don't want this, add that. We're working with a city client right now who wants this to loop back into their computerized maintenance management system, which is complicated, but it can do. So about 3.5 years, and it keeps getting better.
Okay. Other questions?
Okay, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
it. Okay, we are on schedule just about for our next presentation, so we're going to move right into that. Our next presentation, scheduled at 9:30, is by Candy Kisley and Bart, our peace education program that we provide at the jail. I did get to see this presentation on Friday, so it's a kind of an eye-opener, I think, of what we do at the jail.
Give us just a moment, please.
Certainly, we'll let you get it all plugged in here.
Well, good morning, Commission.
Good morning.
This is Candy Kisley. She does our program for peace education program. We started that 3 years ago.
3.5 years ago. In March, it'll be 4 years.
So what we originally did was we didn't have any kind of programming for behavioral thinking for inmates. They were getting it once they were sentenced. That was outside of the facility. And with the rise in the felonies and stuff, as long as the inmates were incarcerated in our jail months on end, I wanted to get something into the jail to help them with behavioral thinking patterns. So through connections, we got a hold of Candy, and she came in with this program. It's an excellent program. The inmates absolutely enjoy it. We have found some changes through them, as they go through this program. They really enjoy the program and have There's work they'd have to do on their own for it, and they really enjoy going to the class. So I'll let Candy take over and do her presentation here for you.
Good morning. Just a little background on me. Like I said, I've been doing this for 3.5 years, almost 4. And I did a little Excel spreadsheet trying to get an idea about how many inmates have gone through this program. And it's about 325 men and 150 women. So at the end, by the end of the year, I'm guessing probably about 500. Some of them are only there in the detention center for maybe 24, 48 hours, and they just come to one class. And then I've had one inmate who went to 87 classes because he was there for over a year and never missed a class. Just a little background on me. I am a resident of this county, and I worked at the Brookings Hospital for 23 years. So, you know, I'm a pretty sound citizen here as a nurse. And I guess one of the reasons that I continue to do what I do is because I care about the citizens of this county. And I'm wanting to see them become more productive citizens and help reduce their recidivism. So anyway, I do have just a short video. It's about 7 minutes long that just explains the peace education program a lot better than I do. And just give you a little bit of insight on what it is about. I'm on this, and I'm not familiar. There is, this particular program is throughout the world, so parts of it are in different languages, so there's subtitles to it. And let me know if you have any trouble seeing them. The Prem Rawat Foundation is the website that you would go to learn about the program. If you click on programs, right at the top is the Peace Education Program. There's some other programs that are in it, but if you click on that, what you first come to is an introduction of the Peace Education Program, and I'm just going to play that for you. And I think, did I put this one on mute? No. Okay. Maybe I should just turn it up just a wee bit. Not too high? Okay. All right.
My perspective on peace was totally different to what it is after doing the PEP.
Sorry, I'm going to stop. I think it does need to be just a little bit louder. So, I have to have it up pretty loud at the jail because there's a lot of noise there. Oops, let's try that again.
Violence have got very, very low self-esteem, and they don't.
My perspective on peace was totally different to what it is after doing the PEP.
Perpetrators of violence have got very, very low self-esteem, and they don't have a feeling of self-worth. That program, the Peace Education Program, fills that gap.
Yo creo que el PEP podría ayudar a más pandillas, a más grupos, a más jóvenes, porque el mensaje que tiene es un mensaje intenso que nos hace abrir los ojos.
Programas como este pueden ayudar a mucha gente. Por ejemplo, a mí me cambió la expectativa en 3 días.
The Prem Rawat Foundation's Peace Education Program is a collection of 10 workshops based on excerpts from Prem Rawat's international talks.
Peace Education Program tries to only achieve one simple thing, is to put you in touch with yourself.
Each session covers one of 10 different themes: peace, appreciation, inner strength, self-awareness, clarity, understanding, dignity, choice, hope, and contentment. The Peace Education program has been offered in 84 countries, in 395 facilities, in 36 languages. The demographics of Peace Education program participants enjoying this program include people involved in corrections, education, civic and government organizations, adult learning, health and wellness, police and law enforcement, corporations and foundations, seniors, community centers, veterans, and more.
The men start to believe in themselves. They start to remember that they're human beings. They start to realise that they can change, that they've got that ability to change, and that the tools they need to make that change are actually inside of them, and they've been there the whole time.
Estamos trabajando también con los chicos de las ex-pandillas. Me parece que estamos viendo un ejemplo práctico de cómo estos jóvenes pueden desandar o desaprender esa cosa que les tocó aprender, ¿no? Y están en el camino de ir buscando su dignidad, ¿no? Yo creo que esa es la aspiración, o sea, mostrar la dignidad a las personas.
As a veteran, we have a saying, prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. In the army, we're prepared for the worst scenario, and you've got the tools to deal with that worst case scenario. Whereas in Civilian Street, I thought it would never happen to me, and I thought I could deal with it if it did. I didn't have the tools, and I've now got the tools through the PEP.
I think that is the ultimate struggle, is that we want to feel numb. We don't want to feel what's going on up here in our minds. So we use substances and alcoholism to substitute not feeling anymore. Premier Watt finds a way to explain to us, you don't have to feel what's going on up here, you have to feel what's going on in here. Find inner peace, and then you can feel better. And that's, I think, a big part of the Peace Education program.
Do you not have a thirst in your life to be happy? Do you not have the thirst in your life to experience peace every single day, not just once, but every single day? You can do something about that. This is where I differ from everybody. Because everybody tells you, no, you have to do something. I say, no, you have to undo it. Undo. Listen. Not to me, but listen to your heart. Listen to that thirst that says to you, be fulfilled.
Es maravilloso realmente contar con el programa en Secretaría de Educación y en todo el Departamento del Atlántico. Este proyecto ha significado para ellos un cambio de actitud, de comportamiento.
Based on all the 10 workshops that I've attended, I'm really blessed because I think what he's trying to say is something that we all know, but it's not something that we are always mindful of. But Prem Rawat actually encourages us, all of us, to see something that is within us, to see the gifts that we have, and to acknowledge everything that is within us.
மனசுல உள்ள குழப்பங்கள் தூக்கி எறியப்பட்டு நாங்கள் ஒரு நிதானமான ஒரு அமைதியான ஒரு வாழ்க்கையை பின்பற்றலாம் என்ற நம்பிக்கை எனக்கு இருக்கு உங்களோட கோர்ஸ் பார்த்தால.
Nosotros nos volvimos conflictólogos. Somos muy buenos para hablar de la guerra y sabemos mucho de la guerra y digamos que la guerra ha ocupado una gran parte de la historia de nuestras vidas. Entonces, hablando de guerra nos movemos como pez en el agua, pero hablando de paz, no, eso a nosotros no nos cae muy bien en la cabeza. Entonces llega Educación para la Paz y es uno de los espacios que hemos venido reclamando.
Del curso de Educación para la Paz creo que aprendí muchísimo. Uno viene con otra visión y cuando uno empieza a conocer por medio de este programa, uno empieza a ver las cosas de otra forma, empieza a verle un sentido a la vida diferente, empieza a ver de que si es posible las cosas, de que hay posibilidad de salir adelante, de olvidar, de empezar de cero.
I believe it's a program that is well needed, not only for young people, but I think for everyone. Everyone can benefit from the Peace Education Program. It works. Peace is important for all of us to survive in this world.
People say, why don't you talk about world peace? I say because the world doesn't need it. It's we who need it. Each one of us.
That they could have those. Bart has some, when I do presentations to different facilities and in particular to correctional facilities, like I've been out to Pierre and talked to the assistant warden at the women's prison, and I've also been at the men's prison, the penitentiary in Sioux Falls, and I usually give them this outline to just help them understand the program a little better. The interesting thing is that it was approved by our correctional, both of the penitentiaries to have, but because of a lack of a volunteer, it never got off the ground, which has been a long time struggle for me. So I think you did get ahead of time some information about GTL is now going to be carrying the Peace Education Program on their tablets. It is just getting off the ground. There's 5 penitentiaries in the United States that are kind of doing a pilot program. But if you'd like some more information about the Peace Education Program, that's one of the reasons I gave you the outline. And this one that I think I started 4 things to know, and I'm just gonna, you'll recognize it by the music that starts. It's Aboriginal. This one is the one that's facility, and if you'd like to get a better idea of the things that the speaker talks about and the reaction of the inmates to the program, and also you saw a little bit of the lady that, the correctional officer that was talking about the program. That's a really good one to watch. So I guess I just want to open it up to any questions that you have for me about the program, or just my insight as far as what happens at the jail as a community member and a volunteer. One thing I do want to express is that there is definitely a lack of space there. Many times I've had to wait for the one room, the conference room that's available. There's always a struggle for that room. It probably comfortably seats around the conference table 8 people. It's happened more than once where I've had 13 men in there with me. So it's very crowded at times, and I know from working with the inmates and talking with them that they would love to have other programs like NA there and other things, and there's no time, there's no space. So that, just from a community member, I just wanted to express that, and as a volunteer on the inside, that I just definitely feel like there's not enough space, and there sure could be some more programs there. So, questions?
Any questions? We certainly appreciate the fact that you volunteer your time for this. It's obviously well respected with the inmates from what I understand, so the attendance at your classes indicates that. And so I hope we can get that facility changed so that you've got the room to have those meetings. Any other
I
questions?
am there twice a week, and I have as many classes as are needed for the men and the women. There's a lot of times where they can't meet together, so right now I've usually got about 4 classes, 2 for the women and 2 for the men. So I'm there for quite a few hours twice a week.
We appreciate that. Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I see that Misty has arrived, so if you'd like to give your report, you could do it from right there if you'd like.
I was going to say I do not have anything today.
That's a short report. You can do it from right there. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Vicky's finance officer's report. We do have some documents in the report. We have an action to approve the fourth quarter transfer to emergency management in the amount of $21,250. We'll do that while we're waiting for you to come up. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And we'll go ahead and, we had some B noted items, the auditor's account with the treasurer payroll and additive totals, highway expenditures report, and the register of deeds statement of fees collected. And with that, Vicki, the rest of your report.
Sounds good. Thank you. To give you an update, not to go off the report here, but we had the sale yesterday in Aurora with the surplus property, and that was purchased, and the price was $25,500. So that will be approved at the next meeting, the November 4th meeting. We'll have a resolution that will be approved, so then we can continue the process of getting that over to the new owners. So just to give you that update. And as far as the finance officer's report, the surplus cash is at 19.15%, which is right in line with what we've had the previous years. So we're doing good there. And just looking at going through the expenses and revenue, we are still in good shape. We are going to have to do something with the 24/7, which we already have that in the process of supplementing that budget. But that is running low. But right now, I'll be working with Stacy, and we'll be watching the budgets closely. And we appreciate if the department heads also will watch their budgets closely. Right now, we're in good shape, but when it gets to the end of the year, there's always things that come in, and I have heard from a couple department heads that they may need some contingency transfers, which will be brought up to you in the next couple months. So we'll kind of keep you updated with that. Otherwise, any other questions you've had on the report that you've went through?
Any questions from the commissioners? Seeing none.
Okay, that sounds good. And I'll probably just stay here and have Kristen come up. We're the next one on the agenda here with the e-poll book agreement.
That's under regular business here?
Yes. Yep.
Is it the first one, item A? Item A is a action to approve agreement number 19-76, a software license agreement between Brookings County and B-Pro Incorporated. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded, and you have some comments for us.
Okay, so yeah, with the agreement, we're sticking with B-Pro. We did negotiate extending it from, currently we're in a 2-year agreement with them. That expires at the end of the year, so we, being happy with them and wanting to continue that, I negotiated a 4-year renewal on that. They did also agree to not change any of the terms on it. I ran it past Dan also, and from what I can tell, there's nothing different except for extending it out to a 4-year. So.
Okay. Any questions on the agreement? Commissioner
I have
Pierce.
2. This is the agreement that we looked at extensively, I think, a couple of years ago.
Yep,
as relates to the city of Brookings. Has all of that been running smoothly? Any issues?
Well, this is just
our part
of it. So as far as with the city, they do their own agreement with B-Pro to use the software also. But then our agreement between the city and everything, I think, is fine.
And have they, on those books, or is it somewhere else that this ends up getting looked at with the security issues with the elections? Do they have any software security portion to what we're doing with them? How does that work?
I think they have extensive security measures in place
Okay.
for what they have. Yeah.
So those counties that have been reported nationally as having their e-poll books messed with during the 2016 election, those problems have been resolved. We're not.
You know, I guess from the IT side of it, I'm not all that up on that part of it, I guess. I think that would maybe be more of a question for Sean or even BPRO.
Yeah, and that might be something we could, ask BPRO, and I don't know if they'd be willing to come, but maybe even, put something in writing to, give us, what they have done for the security problems.
And I guess the reason I'm asking that now, why we're looking at the contract, it's a 4-year contract. So it covers a lot of upcoming elections. And if some more of those issues come to date in the 2020 election, will we have some flexibility to resolve that with them? How will that work?
Yeah, I think, if any issues came up, I think, from their side of it, I think they would definitely want to make sure that they're secure because, they're not only the e-poll book software, they're also Total Vote, which is the entire state. So I think they have to keep their stuff top notch to make sure that they're on board with everything. So I think they would definitely resolve anything that they, could see as a possible issue. I think they would resolve that as soon as they could.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
This isn't the e-poll books themselves?
No, this is the software that gets put on them.
Right.
Yep,
okay.
we're just renewing that license agreement for us to be able to continue to use that software.
Right. So then how about our e-poll books themselves? Are we, where are we at on those?
Yep, we are in the process of purchasing new ones. Sean's going to get those ready for us. Sean and Eric, I think, have already been working on getting those. So, yeah.
How long do we think those those poll books last us the 4 years here, or are they how?
I did talk to Sean about that, and he did say that, with going with new ones, that he thought they would definitely last for the 4 years of this.
Because originally we bought used ones from the state, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now
they're dated at this point. So yeah, going forward, we would be, starting with this contract, we would actually have new equipment.
New equipment along with new software and
Yeah.
stuff. Okay.
That should update all the security with new books, new everything. Okay.
And just to, refresh your memory too, we purchased half of the e-poll books in this year's budget, and then we have the other half that we're purchasing next January. So we do have the half already. So the other ones we'll be getting, and they'll be close enough to, get the same updates and everything on them. So
I would be interested, and I don't know, based on the same change in the statute, whether that's executive session issues or regular meeting, to have an update from Sean on IT issues on elections and what he's learning and what we're doing.
We could put that on a future meeting, have an update. Since it's IT, I think we'd go executive session. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma? Bartley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item B, thank you very much. Item B is an action to approve automatic supplement in the amount of $6,609.93 for reimbursement for joint expenses from the city of Brookings. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any comments? Again, this is an automatic supplement that's already budgeted, so any comments or questions?
This is, once again, unanticipated revenue that we've paid our liability insurance, and the city has reimbursed us back this amount for their portion of the liability insurance for this building. So
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item 8 is our Commission Department Director's Report. We have a bunch of documents.
The first is, as Vicki had just mentioned, the September month-end general fund surplus analysis. Excuse me. We're at just over 19%. That's just above the 9-year average, as you can see in the information that I provided in my report. The Ag Appreciation Banquet is coming up December 3rd. I know that several commissioners attend this event. We are chamber members. The county is a chamber member. Just gauging interest in whether or not there would be interest in getting a table for that event for the county. I know that several of you plan or do attend that, so.
When is it again? December?
December 3rd. Sorry, I went past that.
How many at a table?
I don't know exactly, but I think it's 8.
8 or 10.
So I plan on attending.
I plan on attending.
We all do. Do we have any other staff people to make it 8? Or would it be appropriate? Stacy and who else?
I could definitely reach out. We have a department head meeting next week to see if there's additional interest, and I can contact the chamber to find out exactly how many spots are at the tables too. But if that's,
yeah,
it's
well,
something
I
that
think it'd be the 5 of us. So, you want to reserve a table? Let's do a table. At that, you have to notice that meeting too, or not?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I would put it on our public notices moving forward. Okay. Also, I included kind of a separate note on administrative leave coming up for the holidays. I included Governor Noem's email that she had sent out. What she is doing for state employees is the Friday after Thanksgiving, and then she's doing December 23rd and 24th, since Christmas Day is on a Wednesday this year. What our current policy says, and here it's highlighted, is that we would, Good Friday, which isn't in play right now, but the day after Thanksgiving, and then Christmas Eve or a specified date. So according to our current agreement, which is in place through the end of the year, through 2019, we would get the full day off on the 24th. The 23rd is not a part of this because it's not in our handbook currently. So we would still be open Monday on the 24th. Now moving forward, once January 1 of 2020, that all changes. We're going to not worry moving forward what the state does. But we get then the noon on Good Friday and noon on Christmas Eve. The day after Thanksgiving is the full day, but then noon on Christmas Eve. But to get us through the end of this year, we'd be following this policy. So I wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that.
And is the reason we're still following the old policy because of the union contract?
The union contracts do not go into effect until January 1. So, yeah. Misty had provided me with some information on the upcoming district weed and pest meeting that Brookings County, we're hosting here at the Brookings County Outdoor Adventure Center on November 6th. If you plan to attend that, let Misty, you can let me or let Misty know by October 28th. So that's, I believe it's a Wednesday, right? November 6th. And the agenda is there, included with my report. We did receive notice that the county's 5-year plan has been approved, which is good news, and I included that with my report. And then we've also received a handful of project close letters for big projects back from 2016. I don't know if Brian has any additional comments on that, but they're just big projects that we have done and completed, and now that the project is closed, we received notice of that. I handed out some information this morning on Northwestern Energy is having a community reception. It's on Monday, October 28th, 5:15 to 6:15 at SDSU at Club 71. If you would like to attend, or if you plan to attend, there's information on that handout that I handed out to who to RSVP, or if you would like me to do that for you, just let me know. And then just some other upcoming dates, just to remind you, Thursday, October 31st, we'll be doing that special exec session meeting to conduct department head reviews. That will start at 8:30. We'll open the meeting here in this room and then move into exec session. You'll have about a half an hour or so to discuss kind of how you want that process to look. And then the reviews will start at 9 o'clock. I think the last one is scheduled for noon-ish. So you should be done, I would think, by 12:30, 1 o'clock that day. And again, I've already mentioned the district meeting coming up. Kristen had, when she was here, had mentioned the pumpkin chucking event out at the BCOAC November 9th, the 4-H recognition night coming up November 12th, and I still haven't gotten an agenda. It probably won't come, well, for a couple of weeks yet, but the next Sioux Valley Commissioners Association meeting, or 10-county meeting, is on Wednesday, November 20th. It is in Beetle County. It's in Huron. I just don't have a location. I don't have a location yet for that, but that is the date for that. That's all I have, unless you have any other questions for me.
Any questions? Thank you, Stacy. We'll have the state's attorney's office report, Dan.
Things are good. Nothing new to report.
Like short reports. Commissioner reports. We'll start with Commissioner Pierce.
I'll try to make that short. On October 8th, I attended the Sioux Valley Electric Action Forum, and Senator Rounds was there and spoke, and it was interesting listening to what he had to say. We had some conversation regarding the 20th Street interchange and the support that's coming from his office regarding that. There was a presentation regarding the summer study and the pending legislation on the rural electric versus municipal electric. And I'd heard a lot of presentations from the city. This is the first one I heard from a rural entity. It was all very educational. On October 10th, I went to the health fair, and I'm curious, Stacy, will we get a report on what our participation rate was and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I can put something together.
Okay, it would be interesting. It seemed like there were fewer tables in the fair itself, and I'm wondering if we need to review how the format works for that. But if we had the same participation rate and everybody's happy with it, fine, but I was curious how that worked. Then on October 15th, I attended the jail work session with the rest of you, with the architect to look at some of the interior issues and exterior issues on the jail. On October 17th, I attended the legal session for the South Dakota Planners meeting, and it was excellent. Those two guys always really do a great job, and they talked about things that come up routinely at planning and zoning meetings, and procedural issues, how to do your findings, how to do your noticing, how to do this, that, and the next thing. It was just really good. I was sorry that I missed I was going to other presentations on the 16th, but I had to be out of town in Huron for a family funeral all day that day, so I was unable to make that. And that would be my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Boersma?
On the 8th, I was at the Rounds Community Forum out at the Research Park. That was a really well attended. Next year they have to do a bigger venue because there's just not enough space for all of us that were interested in what was going on. The 10th was also at the health fair. The 15th also at the BKV workshop. The 17th had the opportunity to speak to this year's Leadership South Dakota class, which was a great event. There's 43 people involved, including the city manager from Brookings. And so it was a good evening out at McCrory Gardens to be able to kind of talk a little bit about leadership and those types of things. And then on the 20th was the domestic abuse shelter fundraiser. And so that was also really well attended. So that's about it.
Thank you. Commissioner Krogman.
October 8th, I met with Brenda from Beta and Paul Brzezino. We had a meeting there with, Paul had requested about having city representation on the Beta board, which was good. And he himself, I think, wants to be on that board. And so that will help out with future communications with the city and expansions and projects and funding and the whole works. And so previously they had a person on there, and then they didn't. And so now he expressed interest about attending the board meeting. So I think he's going to be a member of the Beta board. So it was a good step in the right direction, I think. And I think Brenda's very happy and have them on the board and stuff too. So, and then the 15th, we had our jail planning session with all of you. And then on the 21st, I attended the Aurora lot auction yesterday, which went well. You know, auctions are really good when you have two bidders, and we had two bidders. If we wouldn't have had two bidders, it wouldn't have been really good. So it went well, and appreciate Burlage Peterson for putting on that auction because, you know, it's not a lot of money that they're, you know, making, and they appreciate them, you know, taking care of us on our property auctions all the time. They did a nice job. So it turned out very well. Thank you, Vicki. That's it.
All right. Commissioner Jensen.
October 10th, attended the Wellness Fair, and on the 15th, we had the jail expansion workshop in the community room, and on the 17th, we had an E911 meeting. The repeaters have been installed in Bruce and White. After the meeting, I did talk to the fire chiefs. The radios are working better. But there's still some programming issues. I think Bob was working on that the following day to get some of the radios reprogrammed. And that's about it.
All right, thank you. My report on the 8th, also attended Senator Round's event, and I agree with Commissioner Portsmouth. There wasn't not enough seating in the area, but they'll have to make it bigger. And it was a real good cross-section of the community and the county that attended that event. It was done well. On the 10th, attended the First Bank and Trust Focus 19. It was a very good event that they had on leadership and some very good speakers on that program. On the 15th, obviously the jail workshop again, and I think everybody's covered that. On the 16th, the South Dakota Planners Conference, part of a panel to start out the conference with Mayor Corbett and President Barry Dunn from the university and myself. We're the three on a panel on cooperative efforts between government entities. It was well received. I got a lot of good comments afterwards that people really appreciated that presentation. On the 17th, E911, as Larry had covered. And on the 18th, did a jail tour with Reverend Klein and Matt from the paper, and along with Marty and Bart. That concludes my report. Mr. Sheriff.
I apologize. I had a couple more things in my report that I should have gave you. Is that law enforcement's meeting today at 3 o'clock to talk about what's going on this weekend with North Dakota and game day and so forth. So we'll be gearing up for that. And then on the 26th, Saturday, is National Drug Take Back Day again, and I'll be out at Walmart from 10 to 2 taking any unused medications and stuff. So we'll see what happens. Probably everybody's going to be at the game, so I don't know how much business I'll have. Probably I'll get a few drugs. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 12 on our agenda is an executive session in accordance with South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, parentheses 4, for contract negotiations. Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did I get a second? Okay, we got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're moving to executive session. We will take about a 10-minute break.